Okay, we'll call the workshop to order. And can we have a roll call, please?
Farmer?
Here.
Henning?
Here.
Gorman? Here. Merkel?
Here.
Kelly? Here. Bachman?
Here.
And Stevens.
Here. Okay, we're here for our 2026 budget presentation, and Kevin, this is your show, so.
Good evening. Start off like every year, we'll start looking at our trends we've had with expenses and revenues. Starting with looking at the major funds, our general fund, police, fire, the service department. And I did also split out Meadowbrook. So looking at the past, since 2023, you can look as far as the general fund, personal services, which is payroll, benefits, health insurance, like that, has stayed pretty level. And then you can see the total of the expenses jump up. So that's all the other operating expenses we have. And that also includes the transfers out that went to the different departments. It is on. Yeah, turn your hearing aid up. Looking at the operating expenses on the general fund, you can see they've kind of climbed every year till this year, and each year it was the transfers that kept increasing for the police, fire, debt service, and the street, and all those. We'll see we have like I said, we went from 4.4 in this year's budget down to 3.7, so there's $700,000 difference. And a lot of that has to do with, like I said, the transfers that we are not making to the police and fire since they're getting their own income tax dedicated now. But we have noticed, especially this year, everything seems like it's costing more fuel, utilities. I just saw AES, and they're raising their rates, and then now the county is going to have a 5% increase in their rates for the next 5 years. So you're going to be seeing those go up. And looking at the police department, when we get into the police and fire, I mean, that's really heavily, it's all payroll basically. It's both departments are 24/7 departments, so they're running payroll a lot more than the administration. So, and you can see it's kind of increased slowly over the last years, just with the increases in union agreements, the steps, and then health insurance increases. It wasn't that bad this year we had, but the previous years we've had some significant increases in health insurance. And then if you look at the total budget compared to the personal services, you can see it's minimal operating expenses for the police. If you look at the next slide, you can see they're pretty consistent until this year. I know we have an increase in dispatch services, and we also have the flock cameras that we are utilizing this year that is a new contract to pay for.
Is this with current staffing also, or are these projections including additional officers?
We'll get into that, but yeah, for 2026 budget, there is one new hire for the police. The fire department is going to be looking at 2 new hires included in there. I know in the admin side, we do have economic development director put in there as well. So, and then on the fire side, there is a potential retirement that we built into there for the payout that could possibly happen next year. Again, with fire, again, it's almost all payroll for them, and we have some increases to small. Like I said, like you just mentioned, the big jump from 2.5, 2.9, we do have 2 additional, plus that retirement that may be happening, that is included in there. Looking on the operating side for the fire fund, we are, like I said, they're 332, 342, 361. This year kind of jumped up. With the fire department, we do a lot of, instead of just for property insurance, for especially the equipment, we do actual replacement cost, because if you wreck a fire engine, you're not going to be able to go out, and it's going to be a huge cost to get a new one replaced. So we carry those at a higher value than just the regular vehicles we have. I know they also have some modems budgeted in their department. They're having issues with the modems in the apparatus overheating. So they're cutting off, so they're trying to figure out what to do. So they've got some new modems ordered, to see if we can alleviate that, but that's just, the bay gets, especially during the summer, it gets so hot in there, and they've tried fans and systems to try to cool that off without air conditioning it, but that's what they're doing. And then they have some increases in training to keep up the standards for ISO and all that. The service department, hasn't been any major really personnel-wise over there. We did have the union go in. I guess it's been this is our second year of it, so there have been small increases there. And then the total cost is, they have a little more cost in supplies with pipes and asphalt, salt. So we have all those additional costs that the other two departments don't. Kind of looking back at 2023 and 2024, I know in 2023, we did have some money coming out of 401 for the Hoke Road widening, and then we moved it on to CIP later on, so that's why we kind of have a big expense down on 2023. For 2026, they're going to try to, out of their funds, is about $31,000 to build another cold storage barn. We have, right now we got our loader sitting in the salt barn bins, which is not great because then that salt's just eating away at the loader. And then we always have the snow plows just sitting out over out in the weather, and that's not conducive to keeping those, making them last longer. So they're looking at utilizing some of their funds to build a barn and to keep the stuff so we can keep it longer and keep it out of the weather. If we go to Meadowbrook, payroll's about, like I said, with every other departments, we're probably equal, throughout the years. And then looks like we've kept the total budget close to the same every year. We can look at the actual operating expenses. 2024, we saw a little dip, but that's because the golf cart leases switched. We didn't get the new carts in until late in the season, so we had some savings there from that lease. And then they kicked in 2025 full time, and so it's kind of even out with that. But again, we're seeing increases in fuel and utilities with their operations running those mowers and apparatus every day. So with the general fund, transfers is always a big thing we had. So looking at the transfers we made to CIP, police, fire, service, and debt service. Back in 2023, at $2.8 million in transfers, and then this year we had almost $3.3 million budgeted. Next year we're looking at 1.4, and it's from those savings that we have with the police and fire receiving their own dedicated income tax. So trying to look at the revenue trends as far as each department.
Just so, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Just so anybody that may be watching or listening, that's so on the chart, it says 1.44 million, but that's a savings of 1.44 million because,
No, that's the total we're transferring out next year. So, we went from 3.3 million this year budgeted to 1.4 next year.
okay, just wondering, why is, on the chart, why is it so down?
That's what I said, if you look at the color coded, that's the police and fire have 0 transfers next year, 2026. That's why it's flat there. I don't know why that leader line shouldn't be pointed to this too. It's just that's the total for all the transfers.
Okay, thank you.
It's kind of deceiving. So going back to like I said, the revenues. Like I said, the 1.1 will start the 2.5%. And with that, 0.5 of the income tax is going to police, 0.5 is going to fire. But then all of the remaining 1.5% is now going to the general fund. There's none going to the CIP, which we had in prior years. So you'll see an increase in the general fund for that, and as well as the police and fire seeing increases. Capital improvements now will be funded just with transfers, so that's why you're seeing their revenue. Take a little dip, we're only transferring what we need and keeping in the general fund to keep the balance there. And then looking at, budget, actual revenue and expenditures, looking at the general fund, they're pretty well, back in 2023, we basically, what we brought in, we spent. 2024, we brought in a little more and spent less. This year, as budget numbers, so we had utilizing some of our fund balance to make up some of the expenses. But then next year, you'll see we're anticipating having a significant amount of revenues over the expenses that we've budgeted. So we'll be able to build up the general fund balance next year. And then the same with the CIP. We utilized some fund balance carryovers. You'll see where the expenses are greater than the revenues. But then this year, we had revenues coming in, and we didn't spend as much on some of the items we had budgeted. And then next year, you'll see we'll be utilizing what that rollover is at the end of this year to pay for some of the 2026 expenses, and then transferring it over just to what we need to get it to be even. And the police, I mean, they always run pretty close to a zero balance each year, and that's what this is reflecting. And again, with the police and fire, it's going to be kind of getting the income tax next year. I think it's going to be a little slow at start because people making their estimated returns will be at the end of March. Withholding remittances from businesses will be at the end of March. So they'll send them to CCA. CCA will process those and look at them in April. We'll probably start receiving that in May and June. So we're looking at 5 to 6 months before we start seeing that increase roll in. So
I got a quick question on that. So how do we know all of the businesses are on board to increase, like their withholdings?
I've got some calls, but CCA I've had 2 emails. I've got copies of preliminary of what they're sending out, and they're supposed to be going out, I think, next week. They have 1 letter for business withholding, send to those that are making payments now, and they also have letters going out to the residents stating what the change is and how it affects them.
Okay.
And then we'll put those, once those go out, we'll put those on our website and social media, so they're aware of that as well. And then in the fire, this is just like the police, they've already consistent with especially being funded by transfers, their revenues are going to equal their expenses throughout the years. And then with the service department, they receive some gas tax, permissive motor vehicle license tax, but basically that's only funding they have. So they are also funded by transfers from the general fund. So that's why the revenues always look like they equal expenditures, because they're getting just transfers over just to cover what's needed. And then at Meadowbrook, you can see that revenues never meet the expenditures. Back in 23, we were looking at $276,000. 24, we got it down to $180,000 loss. Last year came down to $49,000 for the year, and then currently through October we're at $22,000 deficit. And then one thing I like to point out is, we're talking about actual and budgets. So when we're talking about, we're looking at what we're budgeting to end the year in the general fund. I like to go back and look and compare what we estimate or at 1/1 of the coming year, what the estimated balance would be versus what we actually started out with. So you can see each year that we start out higher, sometimes significantly higher than what we estimate, but that's because we're saying we're going to spend all the monies we have appropriated, which we do not do that. So that's how we increase our fund balance each year in the general fund. And just looking at this year, we started out on 1/1 of 25, we had $4.2 million, and today we're sitting at $5.2 million. So we've actually got $1 million increase through this year so So with the revenues, we're looking at, almost $17 million in revenues. That doesn't include the transfers to the debt service in the service fund and CIP. And I touched on the income tax, how it's going to be kind of a gradual process with that. And then with the capital improvement project fund, not receiving any income tax this year, it's totally funded by the general fund. So when we look at the sources, for the general fund, this includes Meadowbrook, the banquet and golf. You can see that municipal income tax is definitely 70% is our biggest source of income. And then charges for services, which is some of the permits and building department fees, even the rentals for the banquet rooms and Janus Ward Centers in there. And then finally, would be the property taxes, down at 9%, which is, a little small. Police, this year, you'll see that the income tax will be 53%. Then property taxes, they still have property taxes. Hopefully, who knows what's going to happen with, the motion to try to get property taxes removed. We would take a hit with the police and fire. The general fund, we get, $300,000, not that much, but the police and fire do get over $1 million in property taxes, so it would definitely affect us if that happens. So, and then on the fire side, again, income tax will be the top one, property tax, but then with the charges for services, that's the EMS billing for the medic runs, and so they do have a little bit more of charges for service collection in their department. And then you'll see with the service department, intergovernmental, that's the state gas tax, permissive motor vehicle license tax that they receive is the biggest thing. And then basically the rest is all transfers in from the general fund. They do get some interest. There is some small charges for services when we have to go out and mow some lots that people are not taking care of themselves, and some of them do pay, and it comes in right away, but most likely it's coming in as assessments the next year. So if you look at expenses for the 2026 budget, we're looking at a 3% increase cost of living. That's what the State Employee Relations Board has put out. We also got to follow the union contract, so we have steps in there as well as any adjustments to steps. Like I said, we got one police officer that we want to fill, economic development director, 2 firefighters, as well as a potential retirement in the fire department. And you can see we saved $723,000 in transfers out on the general fund. It would have been more of that, because we got rid of police and fire, but then we increased it for the CIP. So, and then if we look at the department's budgets, just looking at those, we actually decreased, almost $67,000 from last year's budget. But then you look at the total budget for all the funds, it increased $104,000. So it's a small increase. And if you look at the expenses on the general fund, you can see that our biggest expense is the transfers out. So, that's the biggest function it's doing. 26% goes towards personnel costs. It does include, like I said, the salaries, insurance payments, HSA contributions, and then 22% is contractual services, where the general fund pays for most of like the internet, the domain hosting for our websites, some of the fibers and all the services and things like that we contract with. Looking at the police, like I said, again, 24/7 department, 83% of their expenses is paying the employees. And then contractual services for their body worn cameras, MDT services, dispatch and stuff like that is the next biggest category. And then they have some small material and supplies issues and training, stuff like that. Fire department, again, 85% for their employees. And the next biggest thing is down to 11% from contractual services, which again is dispatch and training and stuff like that. Service department is at 75%, and again, they have some material and supplies, which they utilize more than the other two departments, especially, maintaining the roads and ditches and stuff like that. But still, every department, the biggest cost is our employees. And then moving to Meadowbrook, again, there's 57% is employee cost. And then contractual services at 16, which is, you got material supplies, and then the debt services, that's just the cart lease that we have down there. Looking at the CIP for next year, some of the items that we have included in budget is we have the Hoke Road Main Street projects. It's estimated to be $915,000 for our share. Finishing the irrigation pump panel down at Meadowbrooks at $11,000. We're doing a culvert with work in conjunction with Trotwood. Our cost is $55,000. We have the annual parks and cemetery mowers. We do leases for that. That's $15,000. The fire department has to get new turnout gear, so we're looking at $66,000 for that. For the annual street maintenance, curb maintenance, we have $600,000. Meadowbrook's going to purchase some of the two mowers that we turn in for the lease. They're going to purchase those for $14,000, and then we'll sell the old ones on gov deals, or we're looking at trading them into John Deere as well to see whichever is going to be a better deal. Looking at replacing Meadowbrook carpet at $45,000. The service facility, they need to replace a couple entry doors and a new garage door, and some flooring, so they've got $15,000 budget for that. We've had problems this year with our heat and air in this building, so we got a new unit coming in at $6,800 next year. The lease payments that we have currently for the fire department's got 2 pickup trucks they use, battalion chief, fire chief, and then we have I think 3 police cruisers on the lease. We have a new bucket truck that we have on a lease. And then next year, we're looking at getting a new sign truck, which goes, the truck that goes out and puts the signs on the road. And then two police cruisers. So we have lease payments of $354,000. And then we have bond payments out of the CIP for $110,000, which is mainly the 2016 road improvement bonds we had.
How much longer do we pay on those?
On the bonds? Let's see, I know they all work out that they're about done, and some are done in 2029, some are done in 2030. I thought I had it here somewhere. Because, like I said, they'll be coming, like I said, they mature all within 2 years, so. Let's see, yeah, here we go. So 2013 bond refunding we had expires in December 1st of 29. The Hoke Road improvements we did for Caterpillar expire in December 1st of 30. The 2016 roadway bonds will expire December 1st of 2030. And then we have an OWDA loan for the sewer system. That actually goes out to 1/1 of 2036. So, and then some other items that we have, the Caterpillar, the income tax sharing, it goes till December of 2033, so. Yeah, like I said, once that comes in, we'll have yeah. So again, talking about our expenses, the biggest portion we have is the personnel. So comparing last year, or this year, current year to next year, like I said, you can see there's a $151,000 increase in the admin side, but it's mostly related to, budgeting for the economic development director. And then some small increases for the police, and like I said, we know there's one new hire there. Fire's got two that were coming on, and then service, $86,000 is just mostly the cost of living and union steps. And then remember, as the salaries go up, you know, the Medicare matching goes up, the retirement matching goes up, so it's just, you know, in correlation with everything.
About the personnel, I mean, for the economic development director and the police and fire personnel, I mean, we've done without.
Yeah.
Those are things that we,
Yeah, I know, you know, Matt's been yelling, he's down officers all the time, but.
I'm with him on that, so.
So looking at the operating side, looking at what was budgeted in '25 versus '26, admin actually going down 64,000. Just a small increase at Meadowbrook of 6,600. And the police, like I said, they have the flock cameras and dispatch services that have increased. But then with the police and fire, they also will be doing, they'll have some monies coming out for the Caterpillar income tax matching. That will come out of those funds because the income tax goes into those funds now, so they'll pay some of that, as well as the fees that CCA charges to collect the income tax. So those are a couple new items for them, but, and then services at $47,000, so kind of a small increase, just inflationary. So looking at that, this is basically just each fund we have in the city. We got them grouped by fund types. Like I said, the general fund is the only fund that we can transfer to other funds. The special revenue funds, those are specific funds that the revenues come in, and the expenditures have to follow those revenues. They have to be for those specific funds. You'll see most of them, like I said, police, fire, state highway, all of that. And then all the TIF districts will be a special revenue fund. And then we have our debt service, which is basically the bond retirement fund, and then capital improvements fund. And then we have some trust and agency funds down there. The fire insurance trust, what that is if there's a fire in the city and there's significant damage to the building or the home, the insurance company deposits a certain amount with us. We hold it until the repairs are made. We go out and inspect it, make sure that these repairs are made, and then we turn the money back over to the owners. But it's kind of just a way to make sure that somebody's, you know, fixing the damage and not just letting it sit there and we have blight then, you know, in someone's neighborhood. Janice Paulus Victim Trust, that was established by an old council member and has not yet been utilized. It's set up to, if there is a family that needs help, we can help them out, put them up in a hotel, or help them with, you know, replacing some items, and it has to be from a fire. So that is there for them to use. Impact fees used to be a big fund for us. We used to collect all the tap-in fees for the water and sewer when all the development was going on, and we kind of said, you know, all we're doing is collecting it and paying the county, and the county kept changing things, so we got rid of that portion of it, let the developers pay those directly, but we still do collect some monies for the Improvement District 1, and that's where the monies from that go into. I think it's $1,100 a parcel when they do anything.
The Janice Paulus Fund, what's the $5,000 going out of that next year?
I just budget in case we need it. Instead, if something comes up, I don't have to come back and ask you before we do it, and we can take care of the residents.
Okay. Is that in an account that accrues any type of interest or not?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's actually, it is with one of our investment firms, so it is accrued interest. And then the JED tax is where we collect the JED area tax, and then it's dispersed it ends up being what we take in, we spend out to the JED board as well as Clay Township and to the city. And then the agency fund is the North Clayton Community Authority for their fees that they assess. We collect those and turn them over to them.
And then
Yep.
talking about the interest, so the general fund balance, does that also?
The general fund receives interest, then the service department, the state highway, and the permissive motor vehicle license tax fund. All three of those receive interest just based because of ORC. They have to get it too, so those get interest as well. So looking at the transfers for next year, We got 1.1 going out to the CIP fund, service at 750,000, and then the debt service for 690, and that's, all those are just to meet the expenditures that we budgeted. And then one final thing that I wanted to bring up is some projects down the road. I know they had contracted, we had purchased the lot behind us, with the house sits, for us construction of a new firehouse. They went and, I don't know if Brian wants to come up and talk about that, he can.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So actually, we brought this up back in 2018. And the plan back then was in 2024, we'd actually break ground and start that project, but COVID hit. Some financial challenges faced, so we kept pushing that off. So the $2.3 million firehouse we recommended back in 2018 now becomes a $7 to $8 million firehouse after COVID. We've looked at income or revenue streams and things like that. So between 2027 and 2029, we're going to look and see where those revenues are at. Kevin's identified some places when you're talking about what debt services are falling off and things like that to try to, at that point, start a firehouse with your guys' approval when we get to that point. We are maxed out. We are at 5,000 square feet. They recommend we be about 13,000 square feet for the equipment, personnel. Right now, you got 7 people living in a firehouse with 2 bathrooms, 1 shower. Now we're in office spaces that are now offices and bedrooms, combinations of 100 square foot. So it's just, we're jam-packed in there. So it's coming that time. The infrastructure that we talked about in 2018 isn't any better. We just had a plumber out. He told us again, you're one catastrophe away from having portable johns and portable showers in the parking lot. And unfortunately, we live in a concrete building. The only way to get there is go through the concrete. So just to get to drainage and water pipes, you're busting up all the concrete, which we have already done some of that. We can't take too much more down. Concrete is a load-bearing object. So we're just meeting challenges there. So we just wanted to put it back on your radar. It's not something we're doing in this budget, but we also didn't want it to get forgotten that it is coming, and we're hoping we can get to the time where we can build one, but it will be a coming.
Is there any way to rent that house? I mean, I know Joe probably took pretty good care of the house. I don't know.
No, so we've actually been using it for training for fire, police, and SWAT, and so that it's not a livable.
Okay, but it is being used.
Oh yeah, it is being used. Yeah, we actually used it today. So it's getting used on, if not a weekly, a monthly basis.
Not practicing fires on that.
No, we are not going to burn that building. No, it's not something that's too close to the neighborhoods to be burning, so we're not doing that. So, but we are utilizing that building, and that's why we're not paying taxes on that building, because we are using it for training purposes for the fire and police department. So there is no property taxes or anything on that building, as long as we use it in that capacity.
I mean, I saw in the news just a couple of weeks ago that the city of Salina quoted a new build for their fire station at 14 million, so.
Yeah, so if you remember when we talked about it, we are not doing a steel and concrete building. By doing that, we're saving about $3 to $4 million just by not doing that. So we're doing a pole barn style that will look aesthetically pleasing on the outside, but and the difference is they'll tell you that a pole barn will last you 50 to 60 years and a steel building will last you 90 to 100. Hate to say, for financial purposes, we don't stay in firehouses for 60 years. We're close to it, but you usually change what you're doing. So don't build for something that you're not going to be in 100 years. So save that money, and if something does change, build or add on to what you have and use the money then. Let's not build for 100 years. But we're just, yeah, if you look at some of the other buildings around, like the Brookville Fire Station was close to 10 million. I'm going to guess that's close to 20 million now. So I'm not an architect, I don't know. I'm just saying those are the kind of prices that you're looking at. And Farmersville built a firehouse back in like 2014, 15 for $1 million. I mean, that firehouse now is $4 to $5 million. So it's just the pricing of it, steel, tariffs, you know, it's just crazy. But again, we just want to put it on your radar so we're not all shocked. This is something that we're planning for. Kevin, we've sat down during the budgets to say, where can we pull money from so we can start that process? Because it's going to take 2 to 3 years to build it. So as we come in with money, we'll start certain phases to get that going. So,
If y'all took a decrease in pay, we could probably get that done.
yeah, probably. Then we wouldn't have to worry about putting anybody anywhere because you won't have anybody. But I'll be honest with you, the firefighters are being very gracious of how they're living over in that firehouse, and I invite anyone to come over and live in the, as they call the dungeon, feel free.
Oh, you guys are awesome. What is the plan for the house next door, though? I have had residents inquire about that.
It'll be torn down.
Do we know when, though?
No, so we're going to keep it there, and we can use it for training until we decide to build a firehouse.
Okay, so that's what I told the residents, that I didn't know if you still were, but I knew that you were using it for training.
Yeah, so I'm not letting them do destructive training in there. Even when SWAT comes in, we're not allowing them to do destructive training, so the building can last and we can continue to use it. So you can, like I said, the SWAT loves to go in there because it's got 3 floors with a basement. So, and the guys can do all types of things with, 3 floors. So it's getting used quite a bit for that. And we got a garage that we can store things in over there, the service departments are used. So it's being utilized, and it'll be there. There's no sense in tearing it down until we're ready to build.
Awesome, thank you.
Anything else on that? Thank you.
So, talking about the firehouse, I did look at our legal debt margin. Basically what that is the state takes your assessed value, and you take it times 5.5%, and you back off the debt you have existing, and that's the margin you got left. Between the 5.5 is without going to residents for a vote, or you have a 10.5 debt limit that you can go to residents for a vote. And we have significant amounts that for looking at 8.5 million, we could issue it with a 5.5, or obviously if we do it in the 5.5, we can do it in the 10.5. So we do have room in issuing bonds, or issuing a bond anticipation note 1 year and then rolling that over into a bond. And like I said, in 2030, 2029, we got those rolling off. But then also in 2029, we got Hoke Road Phase 2 and Main Street Phase 2. So hopefully we can get some grants to help those like we have with the Phase 1s of both those projects. But like I said, yeah, we were looking at just what's down the road, and with those coming off, then you might be bringing on some new bonded debt to build the firehouse.
Do we still have both, it's not on here, but do we still have both roundabouts on for this year? Is it for this year or for
Starts in
26?
Yeah, first
Hope, yeah.
Road, which includes the Winger roundabout.
That is all I had. If you have any questions, any items you want to...
Thanks, Kevin. Any questions for Kevin about at this time? Or any of the gentlemen at that table over there?
When you said earlier that there was a significant rise in healthcare expenses, where exactly do we see that at again?
This year, actually, our increase wasn't that bad. Last year, I think it was, 7%? This year was 1%. But, yeah, and it fluctuates because we don't know if somebody comes in and is on a single plan, it's a lower premium, and then they get married and have kids, and they're on a family plan, which is higher. The new hires, they do pay 20% of the premium. So it can fluctuate. We do, like I said, it's offered to the full-time employees, and then there's also, usually they get about $2,000 in HSA monies as well for that, because we utilize a HSA form of insurance. We do have a couple people that still do a PPO, and that they don't get the HSA contributions. So.
Kevin, just real quick to clarify on Hunter's Path, Grand Traditions, and Winger Village TIFs, basically the money you take into that is going right back out to pay off the infrastructure
Yeah,
costs.
like I said, we get those twice a year. I get those, and then we take off the fees that the auditor and treasurer charge. So then what's left goes to the developers. So at the end of the year, it's a zero balance.
And then with Village of North Clayton, since there is no infrastructure cost there, that just accumulates. Is that right?
Yeah, I do charge some of the sewer debt to there, because it was provided through there. So there is a portion I charge to North Clayton for the sewer loan. So we charge some of that off to there.
Thank you.
Question on Meadowbrook, when the golf simulator, is that a part of, since you're getting used, right?
No, the simulators we bought outright.
Okay, so
Yes, we have 2 of them down there.
is there ever, do you have a breakdown on that? As far as the amount of usage?
Yeah, I mean, I know they do leagues in the winter, but yeah, I can get you, I have the revenue amounts and then what they, like I said, I guess it's just, the only expense we would have is having the personnel cost there and electricity. So,
Anything else?
yep.
Thank you, good job. Okay, is there a motion to close the workshop?
So moved.
Okay, it's been properly motioned and seconded that we close the workshop. Could I have a roll call, please?
Farmer,
Yes.
Henning,
Yes.
Gorman,
Yes.
Merkel,
Yes.
Kelly. Yes. Bachman,
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes. So the workshop is closed, and I'm assuming that we advertised it, start right after. So let's just take about a 5-minute break, and we'll start at 7:15.